great. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Okay, bye.
You guys probably have about 5 minutes.
I'm actually glad somebody called me because I thought I'd already turned that thing off. Apparently that's not the case.
Okay. anybody want to submit a written question before we get started? Should I go lower like that? Like that? All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Elizabeth Larson, and I'm with Lake County News, and we're hosting this evening a forum for the District 5 Supervisorial candidates. And with us tonight are Phil Reimers and Rob Brown. Thank you both for coming tonight. There is a third candidate in the race, John Stoddard. We made numerous attempts to contact him. We did reach him, and he would not confirm his attendance, and he appears to not have shown up tonight. So we did make an effort, but he did not choose to attend. So just a few quick ground rules. We've had a coin toss just to determine the order of answers. Since there's just two of them, we'll just be kind of going back and forth pretty informally. Each candidate is going to get a 1-minute opening statement before we go into the questions. They'll each get up to 2 minutes. They can take less time if they want to. And then we will have a closing statement, which they'll get to wrap up anything they want to talk about for 2 minutes. They'll also get a chance toward the end to ask each other a question. So what we are going to do then is we're just going to start right into the opening statements. We did the coin toss. Rob won it, and he elected to have Phil go first. So Phil, go ahead.
Hi everyone, thanks to Lake County News for putting this on. My name is Philip Reimers. I'm running for supervisor in District 5 because I believe that Lake County can do better than it's doing. Our tourism has gone south for over 30 years. It's reached a level now where we compete with counties that are in the agricultural business for tourism. The tourism-based counties that surround us are doing so much better than we're doing, and the problem that we have here is the condition of the lake. The lake's not bad year-round, and many people on this side of the lake don't realize how bad it is. But during the tourism months, the peak months, the lake is so bad on the other side that it can't be gotten into, or nobody in their right mind should get into it. I believe the lake can be fixed. The technology's out there. It's all biologically sound. It's been approved all over the world. And I think we can transform that lake quickly, not using any taxpayer dollars, transform the economy, and transform the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Rob?
Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you also to Lake County News for providing this forum. I'm running for District 5 Supervisor, running for re-election, and I'm asking for your support for to provide continued leadership throughout some very difficult times that we're facing ahead in the next several years. We've had nearly 9 months of the worst times through the disaster that Lake County will hopefully ever experience. Certainly in the past, it's the worst that we've ever experienced. But the next decade is going to prove to be very challenging, and in order to get through that, I think that you're going to need tested leadership, someone who has proven to not just say what I'm going to do, but has already done it and has already proven that. And I think that's going to be imperative in order to get through the next several years.
Thank you. Okay, the first question we'll start with Rob. Please share your reasons for seeking this office. What were the main motivating factors, and what particular abilities do you have that set you apart?
Well, as I stated in the past, and I've touched on it a little bit here, the Valley Fire has changed everything in Lake County, and my original intent a year ago was to not seek re-election. However, when the Valley Fire came through, it became more and more obvious that in order to get through not just the time that we've had, but the decade ahead, is going to require continued continuity in leadership and connections with the state and federal government in order to bring back the resources necessary for Lake County to be what we can be, to provide for the infrastructure that's necessary, to provide just a sense of normal that the county would lack otherwise if it were left up to a new supervisor, a relatively new supervisor, who has had, with both of my opponents, has actually had no experience in not just government, but no experience throughout this last 9 months in providing any leadership whatsoever through volunteer effort or otherwise.
Thank you. Phil?
Yeah, I'm doing this because I think the lake, the county, everything can be better. I've seen what's happened over the years, and regardless of the leadership we've had, nobody's done what needs to be done to transform this county. Lake County used to be a tourism-based economy. It's not anymore. Our tourism cannot support this county. And with 65,000 people in the county, we're going to have to look at different sources to get money to do the things we need to do, and that's why I'm doing this. There's $40 billion that's given away by corporations and private foundations every single year. The $37 million we need to get the lake fixed is 1/10 of 1% of what they give away every single year. Many of the biggest givers do business right here in this county. Many of them are our neighbors just down the road. We can go visit them, and we can, if what it takes to get this done, I have a source of 4,000 foundations and corporations that give away money every single year. If I have to hound them until they get a restraining order from me or against me to get the money, that's what I'll continue to do, because we have to do something different. As a poor county, we can no longer count on superior forms of government to give us money, and our tax base is not big enough to do the things that need to be done.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Phil. We've both talked, you've already touched on the Valley Fire a little bit, so let's go back to that. District balance that with other responsibilities as a board member, and we start with Phil.
When I was in the construction business, my doctor told me that after about 7 years without a day off, he told me that I had to slow down. I'm not the type of person that does slow down. If I see something that needs to be done, I'll go until I get it done. I'd like to think I'm a problem solver. The only experience I've had with government is United States Coast Guard, and I learned quite a bit in there about how government works. And over my 66 years of watching government, I'm not terribly impressed. I think we can do better. I think we look at it in different ways. With regards to the Valley Fire, it's going to take the same amount of more money than this county has to get things back on track. There'll have to be lots of planning. There'll have to be to give them some sort of identity, and that's the kind of stuff that needs to be done up there. It's a devastating thing. There is no roadmap for fire recovery, but I think I have the foresight to get it.
Admitted that he had attended one meeting during the same time that I've actually, on May 3rd, I attended my 1,000th meeting regarding the Valley Fire. And what can be done, and to determine that roadmap, can't be done on the golf course. It has to be done with hard work. Roll up your sleeves and go to work. I will do whatever it takes to make sure that not just the Valley Fire issues are taken care of, but the rest of the county. It's easy to say you're going to do something, but when you actually have a track record of showing what you can do and have done, I think that's more important, and I think that's what people need to look at. It's easy to talk about it. It's easy to say what you're going to do the day after you get elected, but it takes a lot of nerve and courage to throw out 16 years prior to that election to show what you have done and then let people judge you by that.
Thank you. Question 3, and we'll start with Rob. You've both already kind of touched on this, but this is an opportunity to expand. Do you have any specific priority issues that would be at the top of your agenda if you're elected to represent District 5?
Yes, currently the Valley Fire recovery is my top priority. And I say that not because I think that the rest of the county doesn't deserve attention. I think the rest of this county depends upon the recovery of the Valley Fire. What happened on Cobb, Anderson Springs, Middletown, and Hidden Valley happened to the entire county. And there are folks that you either have family there, you have friends there, or you work there, or there's some connection one way or the other, and we all felt that. It's not something that can be taken lightly as well, elect me and I'll, your chances of getting a restraining order are much better than that of getting a $37 million check from Mark Zuckerberg. So, I mean, it's a serious business. This is not about, it's a lot of hard work. It's not about asking the Easter Bunny to help us out or anything else. This is serious business, and the Valley Fire recovery is going to be top priority. It will continue to be my top priority.
Thank you. Phil.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Do you have any specific priority issues that would be at the top of your agenda if you're elected to represent District 5?
Oh, absolutely. The lake and the fire recovery, and I'm not the type of person that can only do one thing at a time. There's plenty of time that can be spent on both issues, and whether or not the Fairy Bunny is going to give us $37 million or not remains to be seen. With 4,000 sources, we need $9,100 from each one of them, and we'll have our $37 million. We won't get it all from one company, but Chevron, our neighbor 100 miles down the road, gave $11 million to Nigeria in 2014. I'm sure we can convince them to send a little money our way.
Thank you. Question 4, and we'll start with Phil. A Loch Lomond resident has asked the following, and quote, "We don't have any parks in the entire mountain resort area, except perhaps for Cobb Elementary, which is locked, but perhaps semi-accessible when school is not in session. We have no public place for kids or families to gather, no place for recreation. With Boggs Forest closed, we have only strips of asphalt to hike upon unless we trespass on private property. Other Lake County communities have multiple parks. Why don't we have any parks? And as supervisor, what will you do to get parks and recreation opportunities for our community?" And we start with Phil.
Well, the first thing we need to do is to get some money to put parks in. I think of the Hoburg's property up there, and it'll probably never be a resort, so it would make a wonderful park somewhere down the road. The county may end up owning that by default. But yeah, there's lots of opportunities up there. It's different up there now. It's never going to be the same. And I think that if we look to outside sources for money, we can get a lot accomplished. If we keep operating like a poor county and hope that the superior governments are going to send us money, we're just hoping for something that's not going to happen. There's not enough votes up here to impress Sacramento or Washington, D.C., so we're at the bottom of the barrel, and we have to start thinking like we're at the bottom of the barrel and look to other reasons or other sources to get money.
Thank you. Rob?
So about 5 years ago, I began an effort, and the property has changed hands since, but I'm continuing with that effort to acquire the Forest Lake property for that purpose, for a county park. The other opportunity that may have come available is there is funding available to perhaps purchase some of these lots that were in bank foreclosure, the houses that were in bank foreclosure that are no longer there. The banks aren't interested in keeping these lots, and so there's a possibility of acquiring park money in order to buy some of these and create a walking type park throughout the community by merging these lots.
Thank you. Question 5, we'll start with Rob. Over the past few years, the homeless problem in Lake County has become more apparent, with efforts to house the homeless in temporary winter warming shelters and discussion of possibly opening permanent shelter locations. Based on your experience in Lake County, how prevalent is homelessness, and what can the local government and nonprofit agencies realistically do to address the situation?
Realistically, there's not a lot we can do. We can't afford to build a homeless shelter and then create an opportunity for the homeless from surrounding counties and the Bay Area to actually move to Lake County to exacerbate the problem that we already have. Much of the poverty issues, the drug issues, mental health issues that we already have that we're dealing with in Lake County are as a result of population areas around us in the Bay Area coming here to live because it's less expensive to live. We can't exacerbate that by creating homeless shelters and that type of thing. It's my belief that the homelessness issue, in many cases, people live that way because they choose to live that way. And that doesn't say, that's not a general statement that everybody does, but we are working on a shelter for veterans that are homeless in the Clear Lake area currently. So we are taking steps in that regard, but I think that it's up to the churches and those who really believe that their role to care for humanity and to care for the homeless people, they're the ones that should be stepping up, and many of them have through these warming shelters, but I don't think that we're in any position at all financially to create an opportunity for surrounding areas to dump their homeless on us. Right now, again, my main priority is the Valley Fire and the Rocky Jerusalem Fire, those that lost their homes as a result of that. While those people may have roofs over their head, they are, in my opinion, homeless until they get home to where they want, to a place where they call home. And that's what my job will be for the next 4 years once elected.
Thank you. Phil?
Pretty much every county has a homeless issue. Even Marin County has a homeless problem. And Rob's right that, you know, we can get the churches and whatnot to help out. You can't force some of them are mentally ill. I don't believe that every one of them out there that's homeless would not choose a better lifestyle if they had the opportunity. So we have to get in touch with these people one at a time if need be and see what we can do to help them. But there's not a whole lot we could do to change that part of this world we live in. There's homeless people in, like I say, every county, and you can't round them up. So there's not a whole lot you can do. If they can help themselves, if they're willing to help themselves, then I'm all willing to give them all the help they need. But But if they're addicted to chemicals or mentally ill, there's the mental ill, you can give them help, but you can't cure them from what I understand. And with regards to the drug addiction, you might be able to get them off it, but they might get right back on it.
Thank you. Question 6, we'll start with Phil. Staff turnover is a consistent issue for the county government, and recently the County of Lake has seen about 1/3 of its department heads retire or resign. As supervisor, how would you address turnover and retention of Lake County staff?
Well, when people retire, God bless them, they'll be out on the golf course and get criticized someday. As far as the staff, we lose a lot of people because we can't pay enough money. For an example, I met with the SEIU people that contract with the county to provide in-home health services. They're getting minimum wage. And if the county can't compete with other counties dollar for dollar as far as salaries, then we're going to lose people to other counties, and that's what's happening with our law enforcement agencies. So I don't want to sound like a broken record, unless we get more money into this county and do it in different ways than asking for other forms of government to send us money, things are not going to get much better.
Thank you. Rob?
We deal with the recruitment and retention issue like you would in your own home budget or your business budget. You work within your means. We have to establish our own priorities, and we've done that. This board has done that. We've been actively in negotiations with law enforcement, which becomes public safety is a top priority. And so that's where we had the biggest problem with recruitment and retention. We had 45 deputy positions. We had 14 vacancies, and the board took drastic steps, found the money. We worked on a few things, and we haven't ratified the contract yet, but we are really close to it, to a raise that just with the intent of it out there. We've already stopped a lot of the leakage, and we're down to what could be 3 or 4 vacancies once this thing is ratified in the next week or two. As far as the department heads, it just happened that they were due to retire at the same time. It's just, that's what happened. And we've been actively recruiting, and we've just appointed a couple of outstanding applicants to fill those positions. So we really have no vacancies in those areas or anticipated. The one exception to that is, in order to save money, to provide more money for additional raises for employees to stop the leakage. We're looking at the possibility of combining agencies. When you have a situation like this, you take those opportunities and you use that to your benefit. And so we're looking at social services, behavioral health, AODS, and the health department, public health, and combining those agencies with one department head instead of 3, and that would provide opportunities for money that could then be used at lower level in the staffing areas where we need them, and public safety, roads, some of the other departments where that money would be used.
Thank you. Question 7, we'll start with Rob. The prospect of full marijuana legalization is once again before California, with a ballot initiative possibly going to voters in November. It's still being, I guess, checked out by the state attorney general. Do you see this marijuana as a potential economic boost for Lake County? Would legalization prompt you to consider changes to the county's Measure N cultivation ordinance, which keeps growing out of community growth boundaries and requires that it be limited to certain plant numbers and zoning? And we start with Rob.
Well, I haven't really had a chance to give this subject much thought. As a joke, sorry. No, it absolutely will not provide a boon to Lake County. The marijuana industry, until it's legalized nationwide, it won't make any difference what happens in the state of California. You create a black market in the rest of the United States, and California, which really isn't California, it would be Mendo, Lake, Humboldt, Trinity County, would become the growing grounds, the green grounds for the rest of the United States. And no good can come from that. We've already seen what happens in that situation. People come from all over the United States. They come here, they camp here, they take our stuff, they just take everything but a bath from our community, and they leave us with the mess and the crime and everything else that we already are overloaded with dealing with all these social ills from other areas, but mostly because of the marijuana. Marijuana itself, I don't care. If somebody wants to smoke their brains out, that's fine. It's the culture that I have a problem with. These folks are not responsible. They could care less about Lake County. They could care less about polluting the lake with their nutrients and their fertilizers and whatnot. and taken our water, and I just see no good can come from it. The legalization of it will not prevent us from still implementing zoning laws that would restrict growth in certain areas, growing in certain areas, and we'll continue to use those. I've proposed that if they have no growing in District 5, as far as I'm concerned, they can just block off District 5 and protect that from the rest of the county, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. Phil?
Regardless of what people feel about cannabis, the growing is going on in this county year after year, and has been and will continue to be. Matter of fact, once it's legal, while it may not be an economic boon, well, I think it would be. Colorado gets $300 million a year in tax revenue, and what we could do is I've always been a proponent of licensing the pots. We still have to have restrictions on where it's grown, but most of the growers, from what I understand, grow in pots, and the bigger the gallon pot, the bigger the pot, the more product they get. And charge them to register the pots. We aren't, and that way we know where the legitimate growers are, and then the efforts could be spent on the people that don't want to comply with, would be a kind of like a let's get along kind of program, because we're not going to stop it anyway.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Phil. Public safety remains a key issue for community members, and there have been heightened concerns, especially in the Valley Fire area, as a result of understaffing at the sheriff's office. How is the county, or how would you as a supervisor get law enforcement up to the level so that it's not overloaded and keep peace officers from leaving agencies? And what would you say to community members who have safety concerns as a result of the public safety staffing?
Well, I know that in many parts of this county, if you dial 911, understandably it takes them a long time to get there, so there is safety concerns. I actually think a county this size should have twice as many sheriffs as we have. Where the money's going to come from, well, we could, apply for grants and make cutbacks here and there, but at the same time, if we revive the economy and bring more dollars in, we can take care of a lot of these ills.
Thank you. Rob?
Grants are not a good idea to pay for people. The grants run out. What are you going to do with the people? How are you going to pay for it? And this is part of the problem. This is where experience comes in. My opponent has never once spoken to the sheriff regarding what this issue is, or any of the deputies. And it's obvious in that, because it's a lot more complicated than that. We have taken steps. We're never going to pay our deputies what they're worth. We're never going to pay our correctional officers what they're worth. What we can do is make them a priority, as we've done, as we've promised, and continue to sit in here hours upon hour upon hour in closed session, coming up with solutions to try to identify ways where we can keep these good people that do what they can to protect us.
Thank you. Okay, question number 9, and we'll start with Rob. So let's discuss the economy for a minute. The key components of Lake County's economy over the last several decades have included tourism and agriculture. How can Lake County's economy be improved? Should it continue to rely on tourism and agriculture, or do you see other industry opportunities? What role do you think county supervisors actually play in developing the economy? And please be specific.
Okay. Actually, that is a good question. To be specific, one example is Carol Hutchinson, our new CAO, and I met with AT&T about fiber optic through the county, and there are opportunities coming available. They asked us to wait until they roll that out real soon as far as what their plan is, but it's very exciting, and that's what we need. We need other businesses. Tourism is good, and Lake County will always rely on tourism, but tourism is not as good as it once be for a lot of different reasons, and for more reasons than we can describe in 1 minute. And a lot of it has to do with, there are just things in, closer to where they live that where they can recreate. One of the things that we do have, and my opponent doesn't have the statistics to support the claims that he's made, so I'm not pretty sure he doesn't have the statistics that show the millions of dollars that agritourism has actually brought into Lake County. The wine grape industry, for example, has brought in a tremendous amount, and I think we need to continue to support that industry to bring in more day-type tourism. There was another part of that question
What do you think a county supervisor's actual role is?
Yeah, the role is to actually go and advocate with organizations like AT&T, bring the infrastructure in, make sure the infrastructure is in first, and then bring these. We've had a lot of businesses that we've met with that want to actually come to Lake County, and you would think that a county with a high unemployment rate like Lake County has would have a workforce that would support businesses like that, but that's been the issue. The folks that are unemployed, and again, I don't mean to speak in general terms because there are a lot of people out there that aren't working that want jobs, but there are opportunities for them now, especially in the wake of the Valley Fire. But we need to bring in a workforce. We need to bring in a group that want to work, but the largest group that we have available to work right now are students that are in high school. We need to spend more time, more energy, more resources on training these kids so that they don't leave Lake County and they're able to stay here for job opportunities.
Thank you. Phil.
We're going to be an agricultural and tourism-based economy because there's no other category we'll fall into. If you're going to be a logistics county, you better have a freeway close by, and we don't have any of that going on. With regards to our agribusiness, we're 43rd out of 58 counties in agricultural production. To give you an example, Colusa County produces 10 times more agricultural product than Lake County does, and does it with a population 1/3 the size of ours. Our population is too big to solely depend upon agriculture. As far as bringing businesses up here, the businesses will come. They were once here when we had people coming up here. I was here in the 60s, and tourism was a lot different than it is now. And if we get the tourists back up here by fixing the lake, we'll get people up here, we'll get businesses up here. We've got a lot of empty storefronts right now. We're not lacking businesses, we're lacking people to fill those businesses.
Thank you. I just want to follow up with both of you because both of you have brought it up and discussed it. You said you were here in the 60s and you've seen tourism change. What are some of the things you've seen change with tourism? Well,
I've told the story before that before I went in the military in 1968, I came up here on a 3-day weekend. I don't remember if it was Memorial Day or the 4th of July. And I came up here like a young kid does without any plans, and I could not get a room. The place was full. You can get rooms anytime you like now. In 1965, the dredging took place for the Kelseyville Marina, and at the same time, Lake Berryessa opened up. I, as well as others I've talked to, believe that the lake advanced forward in its process of becoming a trophic body of water and jumped ahead of where it would normally be, and the tourism died off. They had another place to go. My wife and I lived up here in the early 70s, and where we lived, we could see the traffic drive in on the weekends and drive out on the weekends. You don't have that going on anymore.
Rob?
I didn't just come here and visit in 65. I've been here the whole time.
You were already here by that point, right?
I was here then, yeah. I wasn't driving legally back then. But anyway, the tourism has changed tremendously. One of the things that he's spoken about are the rooms that were available. And there was a lot of resorts around the lake. And those changed when people started buying them, and then they were renting them out yearly, rentals, and the geysers came, and the gold mine came, and in different groups, and they were renting them out. They weren't resorts any longer, so there weren't. And then Canocti was huge, and it was a big plus for us, and then it closed the doors, and hopefully it'll open again. But the tourism that we need to rely on now, as I said, is the agritourism that is the day, and to compare. To compare the ag in Colusa, yeah, there's 10 times more ag. It's rice. Not a lot of people go to taste rice. So, we have grapes here, and I think we're going to do much better than Colusa when it comes to agritourism, when they come for wine tasting and the things that go along with that. So.
Okay, thank you both. Next question, and we'll start with Phil. Lake County has important water resources. Clear Lake, Blue Lakes, Lake Pillsbury, Indian Valley Reservoir. Control of these assets has been a matter of public interest and concern. What are your plans, if any, to address the control of the county's water? And is there anything new that can be done that hasn't been done before? And we start with Phil.
Well, like I said, the technology is here to take care of this lake, and if any of our other bodies of water start having the same problem, of which they probably will at some point in time, we'll know how to fix it. To give an example, Blue Lake's tourism season starts in late March and goes on until late October, and it's because they have no problems with their water. And so I think that, taking care of the water is important. It's our most important resource up here. It's everybody's most important resource. But to ignore the fact that everything that we need to do in this county is going to take money. And Rob O talks about grants. They're fine. Get them everywhere you can. Ask for them all you can. But we're just not going to get enough to do the things we need to do. We're the poorest county in the state. We have to start acting like it and do a little big in ourselves.
Thank you. Rob?
I don't know that he's ever heard me mention anything about relying on grants. We rely on our tax property tax dollars coming back to us. This is not grants. This is our money that we've already spent, and we need it to come back, and that's what I'm referring to. Reimbursement is more the case. The lake, we are working on a lot of different things: Thule restoration, Middle Creek Marsh restoration. We've reduced the total daily maximum load of nutrients, TMDL, total maximum daily load, by over 50% in the last 5 years, and I've been the chairman of that committee. We have not met in the last year because of a lot of issues that have come up, but prior to that, we had reduced that nutrient load by over 50%. So we are taking steps. My opponent talks about a magic pill that you dump in the lake. He knows full well, I've already demonstrated this, it's not allowed in any California lakes. Fish and Game will not allow it. I'm not saying it's a bad system. I believe in the system. I think it is a good system. We looked into it 5 years ago. Fish and Game will not allow it. So he's being somewhat deceptive when he said it's allowed all over the world. It is. It is allowed all over the world in several spots, not in California. In Novato, it has been used. He's used that as an example. And in Novato, it was in private waters. They've used it in public sewage treatment plants, the enzyme system, and it's worked amazingly. Fish and Game will not allow it in Clear Lake or any other state-owned bodies of water in the state of California.
Thank you. Okay, I've received some questions just specifically for each one of you. So I'm going to ask each of you the specific question, and then I'll even allow the other person a minute to, chime in on the answer. So the first question is for Rob. Do you believe that after 4 terms on the Board of Supervisors, you still have new ideas to offer in representing District 5?
Yeah, I have actually shown that much in the last 9 months, but even within the last couple of months. Coming up with solutions. A lot of times, what I've learned is you have to be able to identify a problem before it even appears, and then it's helpful if you can identify the solution before that problem appears, and people say, we're going to be seeing this. This is what's going to end up happening. Our law enforcement issue is one of those, and coming up with new ideas and new solutions on how we're going to come up with that money has actually they've come from ideas that I've offered to our board, and they've accepted that and they've supported them. So yeah, I think someone can, and it's not about being closed-minded. I think currently, we have 3 identifiable bodies of government, not including the tribes, although the tribes have been very, very much a part of this recovery as well. But as far as municipal governments, we've got the City of Lakeport, City of Clear Lake, and the county. And we've always done our own thing. We've had our own government and our own money and all that, and it's worked okay. But recently, in the last, even before the Valley Fire, we know that we're running out of resources and we're not getting the love from Sacramento or from the feds that we feel that we should.
As it is, our centers of business don't look so good, and that's where the people will come if they do come up here. Wanted to touch on something else that was mentioned earlier with regards to the magic pill that'll go in the lake. The biological augmentation, which there's 2 factors to this. One is oxygenation, where oxygen is put at the bottom of the lake. It's actually air. Oxygen is not outlawed anywhere in this world. The other one is a bacterial enzyme. If you walk in a field or walk in the forest, you'll step on 30 million of these things with each footstep. They are so effective when mixed with oxygen in a body of water, yet so benign they don't even require registration by the Environmental Protection Agency. They were used in Big Bear Lake in Los Angeles. That didn't work well because they didn't add the oxygenation to it. The company that the county just contracted with yesterday to spray herbicides on the aquatic weeds also uses the same process. Their diffusers are different, is the only thing I can see. They use the bacterial enzyme, and they have 2 headquarters here in California, one in Martinez, one in the Bay Area, and if 2/3 of their product line was not allowed in California, I don't think they'd be here.
Thank you. Okay, the specific question for Phil is basically on that same topic. What would be your program for algae cleanup or suppression?
As I've said in the past, my plan is to fix it once, fix it right, fix it forever. The little bit of fixes here, a little bit of fixes there is not going to do any good. The ecosystem at the bottom of our lake is damaged. The only way you can correct that is to fix it. I've talked to many, many experts on this thing, not just the ones that are in the business of fixing it, but other folks that I've gotten a hold to and sent emails to and asked them questions about this over the last 5 years. I've been studying it. And this lake can be fixed. It can be transformed quickly. In 2 years' time, it would not be the same body of water. It'll take money, and yes, the money's out there. I think it's the Easter Bunny we're going to get it from.
What would that program be, though? What's
Oh,
the steps?
the program it's a system that's installed. It's called laminar flow inversion. The company that the county just contracted with calls it flow inversion. One directs the air upward. One directs it in a sideways fashion that causes the water automatically rotate. Oxygenated water is less dense than low oxygenated water, and that's what provides the natural circulation. The biological augmentation is a bacterial enzyme that each sludge, it multiplies very fast. That all it does is each sludge. What it does after each sludge is the byproduct is water, oxygen, and an ash. The consistency of the ash is such that it bonds to the potassium that makes it ineffective as a nutrient.
And would this be like an installed?
Yes, it would be installed. We'd contract with the company. Matter of fact, there's two of them now that we know of that does it, and there's probably many more. And we'd go out and when I asked for a price from the one in Florida, I asked them for the Cadillac job. I want this thing fixed once, fixed right, fixed forever. They were aware of Clear Lake. They said it would be $37 million. We'll negotiate if we get the money. We'll get them down cheaper than that, but that's a starting point. And we put this system in. Once they turn it on, it would cost about as much as each air compression station would cost about as much as a street lamp to operate. And once they're running, there'll be nothing more to be done to the lake. And by the way, with regards to the aquatic weeds that they're treating, what happens is it dilutes the carbon dioxide in the water so much that the weeds can't get a foothold and get started. So it's effective control of the aquatic weeds at the same time.
Okay.
$37 million check clears, I'll resign, you can have the job.
When you say it's not allowed in Clear Lake, do you have a
Fishing
decision?
game will not allow it.
Okay.
We tried to get them to be able to do test plots in Soda Bay, some of the other areas, and they would not allow it.
Did they give a reason about why they won't allow it?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I think Lake Davis had a lot to do with it. I think they're a little cautious.
Could be. And for those of you who don't remember, that was when they went in and tried to poison the pike, right?
Right.
Okay. Next question. This is a chance for each of you to ask each other a question. So we'll start with Rob. You have an opportunity to ask Phil a question, and then you can respond to his answer.
I just, when you first said that, I'm not going to ask a question, but something came up. The comment about growing marijuana, it's growing anyway, which, there's child molestation anyway too, but we still continue to fight that. Colorado has $300 million in revenues. Do you have any idea how much it's cost, how much the cost of fighting crime and the cost of their society and their culture that the legalization of marijuana has cost?
Well, I've never seen any figures on any increase in crime rate, and I know that the Colorado is very happy with their tax revenues.
Not everybody.
Okay, Phil, your turn.
Yeah, I have a question, Rob. You've mentioned Canocti, you'd like to see it get open. I'm wondering if you consider the fact that you blocked the sale of Canocti Harbor Inn about 5 years ago, if you think that in hindsight that was a bad idea, knowing that Local 38, the pension fund, was going to fund that for very much longer.
Actually, I did not block the sale of that. That was blocked by 1,283 signatures on a petition from the residents out there that did not want a casino in that area.
You want to respond?
Yeah, I was under the impression that you even went back east to meet with Dianne Feinstein to get support to stop that sale from going through. So I think you spearheaded it. There may have been signatures, but I think you were spearheading it. I may be wrong, but that's what I read.
You are. Yeah, you're correct that you're wrong. I did not go back east to talk to Dianne Feinstein or anybody else for that matter.
Have you ever talked to Dianne Feinstein?
Not knowingly. Yeah.
Any other response, Phil?
No, I'll check the news reports when I get home.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from the audience that anybody would like to submit before we start wrapping up? Okay. We're going to go into closing statements, and I'm going to give you each a little bit of extra time just to wrap up, since you guys have moved through these questions with lightning speed. So I'm going to give each of you 3 minutes to just wrap up, talk about, maybe you can refer back to something that you said earlier that you want to expand on, or maybe just bring up, something that we haven't already discussed that you think is important about the election. And we'll start with Rob.
Well, as I stated earlier, this, this is a blood sport, this politics, and I don't mean any disrespect. I actually have admiration for anybody who wants to actually show up to a debate, unlike our other opponent who won't show up. So I appreciate that Phil comes and he brings his wife, because this This is a tough business. But the realities are we're up here to identify the truth and state facts. Now, I don't want to say that we make it look easy, but maybe we do sometimes. I don't know. But this is tough business, and to consider that we can just go out and ask people for money and they'll give it to us. We're asking constantly. We're begging. We are at a point we're trying to do everything we can to make sure that Lake County continues to stay in the black, as we have been the only county for years to be able to stay there. I'll continue to do that. You need somebody who's had proven leadership and has proven time and time again to not to be totally disregard how many hours it takes, how many days it takes, how many meetings it takes, crossing political boundaries. It's no secret that, you know, I'm fairly conservative, but I'll tell you something. I'll take a bullet for Mike McGuire. That guy has done everything he can for us, and Assemblymember Dodd and Mike Thompson. Those three men have done an amazing job, and I'll continue to work with them, and that's why I've gained their respect and their support in my bid for county supervisor for 5th term.
Thank you. Phil?
Yeah, there's been some comments about that I don't show up at meetings. I've been at a number of meetings. Matter of fact, one of the first ones Rob held at the Cobb Mountain School, I sat outside because the crowd was so big. I'm a retired person. I'm not an activist. I'm not running for this office to do this for 20 years. I want to run for, if elected, I'll serve for 4 years. My intention is to get that lake fixed, get the economy turned around, and then I'm done. I'm not a politician. This is something I've never even considered doing until 5 years ago when I seen the solution was there and I've seen nothing's been done about it. The notion that because Rob Brown says that the biological augmentation won't be approved in California. Like I say, it was used in Big Bear Lake, which is in California, and it is why we have these problems. They don't want to look outside the box and look at other solutions to get things done. Our county can't afford to keep going in the direction it's going. We're out of 58 counties, only 7 of them draw less tourists than Lake County does. It can't be that way. We border 110 miles of the richest communities in the country, and we can get those people up here if we can get a reason for them to come up here. If we transform the lake, then we can start to transform the rest of the county. It's a blighted area. Lots of areas don't look good. It's not very welcoming, but you can't fix that unless you have a reason to, and if we get more people up here, we'll have a reason to. One other point I want to make about experience in government. The way our government system was set up from the beginning of time was to have civilian people come and serve, do their job, and get out. Our country's full of people that have been in office 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and we can look around and see how well that working out these days. Thanks so much, folks, for listening.
Thank you. Well, thank you both. I think this may be the fastest forum we've ever hosted. You both went like lightning through those questions, and they were tough questions. So thank you both for coming. Phil Reimers and Rob Brown, wish you both the best of luck. We appreciate you guys taking in a beautiful evening. Thank you to those of you who came out. I also want to say thank you to the Lake County Economic Development Corp, who has been a co-sponsor of the events we've done this primary season, and of course to videographer John Jensen, who's been live streaming, and this will be available for rebroadcast. And I'm Elizabeth Larson of Lake County News. Thank you very much, and have a great evening.